Welcome to St. Stephen's Lutheran Church. We are located in Hicksville, New York, and we are a congregation of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Even though I am dressed as a civilian today, I am Pastor Emily, the pastor of St. Stephen's, and this is another video in our Fireside chat series. Of course, I'm not by a literal fireside. These are informal conversations we're hosting about faith and topics from our everyday life, inspired by questions from people in our church and community. So the question we're going to take today is a question that gets asked to me and to others from time to time. Why are we talking about politics at church? Politics and religion, two topics that are supposed to be off limits, right? Two topics that it is impolite to bring up at a dinner party. And of course, in some circumstances, that is probably true. But I think there are actually a lot of important reasons why we should address a variety of topics in our faith communities, and that includes issues that some people do consider to be political. Now, I'm far from the first pastor to address what some people consider to be political issues in my preaching and teaching. There are folks who have been doing this for a long time before I've been born. And it's actually much more common to do this sometimes in other denominations as a part of the ELCA, we're what's considered a mainline Protestant denomination. And sometimes it's a little less common to bring up political issues in our tradition. Of course, what one particular pastor or faith community considers to be appropriate might differ from another, and what they consider to be political or not might differ too. Some churches or religious communities will go so far as to tell you exactly who you should vote for or how to vote on a particular referendum. I'm not that specific in my own teaching and preaching, but I do think that topics that are sometimes considered to be political warrant our attention here in church. Like some of the topics that we've already discussed in our previous fireside chats. Why? Well, I think that for Christians at least, the answer is that it's because faith is something that encompasses our whole entire lives. We can visit together a passage from the book of Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, and this is a verse that's not only extremely important to Christian people of faith, but to our Jewish siblings too. It says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." And of course, in our Christian tradition, in our gospel readings, Jesus quotes this in the books of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And he quotes it maybe just a little bit differently. "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength." That's from the Gospel of Mark chapter 12, verse 30. Being a Christian is about loving and serving God with your whole entire life. It's using your compassion, your emotion, your heart, and your soul. It's using your mind, your intellect, your capacity for reason and for thinking. It's using your physical strength, your body, your abilities, your talents. Being a Christian person of faith, it's about what you read. It's about how you treat both your friends and your family and strangers. It's about what you choose to eat, what you choose to wear, how you drive. Yeah, that's a troublesome one, even for me. It's how you raise your children, how you communicate with others, how you do your job and live out your vocation in the world. And yes, it's also about how you vote. Faith is a part of all of this. It can't be compartmentalized into only Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights or Saturday nights or whenever you worship. And faith can't be something that's just kept to yourself, something that's private. As Christians, we follow a God, we follow Jesus, who gives a very public witness to who God is and to what God teaches us. We follow Jesus, who has a public ministry and who gives up his whole life for others. That's the example we're to follow, a very public example, an example that encompasses all of life. And of course, not only Jesus, but many Christians down through the centuries have lived out that example as well. Our whole lives, our whole selves, it includes our politics. Now, sometimes the Bible leaves us with a lot of wiggle room, I think, when it comes to deciding what we think of a particular political candidate or policy. But on other things, the Bible is pretty clear. One of those things, for example, is immigration, which we've already hosted a chat about earlier this year, or taking care of people who are in poverty, or people who are marginalized and left out by society, caring for orphans and widows. Those are teachings that the Bible voices over and over, time and again, both in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, in multiple books, across readings. There are some themes that are just very consistent in our scriptures. Issues like caring for immigrants and for the poor and the marginalized, those are not issues that have always been considered political. They are things that Christians and actually people of many different faith traditions have long agreed on, but they've become more politicized in recent years. That might mean that even though these are things that the church has been talking about for a really long time, they're starting to stand out more to people now that they hear them in the political world depicted in a different way too. People might feel like we're talking about politics in church when actually sometimes we're just talking about the Bible. We're just quoting Jesus. We're just talking about things that our ancient and holy scriptures address and tell us are important and are at the heart of God and are at the heart of who we are. So why are we talking about politics at church? Well, sometimes it's because the Bible is talking about politics, or at least about things that we consider to be political. So where does this leave us? Well, what do you think? What's a topic you have heard addressed here or in your own faith community that you wonder if it's appropriate? Or what's a topic that you haven't heard addressed that you think the Bible might have something to say about? Thanks for joining us for another Fireside Chat, and we'll see you soon.